No, you can't hear me. Okay, there we go.
Okay, yeah, I can hear you just fine now.
Okay. Yeah, that was on me. My bad.
No, you're good. No, thank you for doing this. First of all, I truly appreciate it. I understand things get real hectic considering how time's been, so I truly appreciate you taking time out of your schedule.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's not a problem at all. I'm always happy to talk with people. So, uh,
Cool. Yeah, pretty much this is just like an informative like interview. Like I just kind of want to know what it's like just like in the indie game dev scene. I'm trying to understand like what's going on. Hey, with a special guest appearance. I, that's
don't worry about it. Come here.
but real quick before I actually get into like the questions I had, real important question. Where does the name Phantom Sloth come from?
um, actually, it's kind of funny. I don't think anybody's actually, asked if there was a specific story or anything behind it. So it was a kind of a mix of things. So like the first part was sloth. So there was a point in time where I think I was probably like 14 or something like that. And I was hanging out with my friends and we were playing basketball and I just like, I was, the hefty kid and everything. So like, playing basketball, that's not my game. So at one point or like I went and I sat down on my friend's, tailgate on like his truck, his car. And I was sitting there and the ball like had bounced over to me and I was like, I'm not getting up. I'm not doing it. And they were like, my friends were like, no, you get up, dude. Like, just get, like, all you gotta do is kick the ball over to us. And I was like, I'm not doing it. And they were like, dude, you're being sloth right now. You're being lazy as hell. And I was like, well, then call me sloth. And then basically they did. They just basically called me sloth for years. And at that point, like Xbox Live was coming out and everything. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I need a gamer tag. So I tried using sloth and that was somehow taken already. And I was like, oh okay, yeah, sure. So it was like, do you want to be sloth 1991 because that's your birth date, or do you want to be something else? And it was like, here's the suggestions. And I was like, okay. So they're looking at them all, and my friend was like, oh, you should be the Phantom Sloth. And I was like, all right, whatever, I'll probably change it in a week. Here we are years later, 15, 16 years later, and still freaking going by it.
I feel like that's how, especially like people kind of born like within that range. That's how a lot of their online tags were. It's just like I used it for Xbox and I just kind of stuck with it because that's actually where like mine came from. Like Simtaz, that was from like ages ago, and I just stuck with it like all these years now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so for like now getting into the proper interview, I would say the one thing I'm really interested in is kind of like what's your background as far as like the game dev go? Like what kind of like education or skills did you like learn or acquire?
Yeah. So I mean, I started pretty young with certain things. I was homeschooled, so I had a lot of like free time and time to spend on a computer. And since I didn't have like that social connection, I didn't have a lot of friends. I had like my direct friends, which was like my neighbor, and I still to this day hang out with him. It's been 20 years. And like, so we would hang out, we would do that stuff. But like when I wasn't hanging out or doing anything, I would be sitting in front of my computer. And back in like 2007, I think it was, there was a movie trailer called We Are the Strange for just a super random, odd movie that was being featured on YouTube. And everyone was like, what the heck is this? They would watch like 20 seconds of the trailer and bounce out. They'd be like, this is too crazy for me. But like the director, his name is M. Strange. He was doing these movies by himself, just, one man creating an entire feature film using stop motion animation, very little live action, which was often green screen, and then CGI. So of course I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is doing this movie by himself. Like I have these ambitions of being a film director, and I was like, I gotta jump on this. what is he doing? So I started following him, and he would talk a lot and be inspirational and stuff on YouTube. And so I started diving into 3D programs, which was not Blender, 3ds Max at first. It's way back in the day, 3ds Max. And it basically came down to like, well, do you want to steal this program? Like, how are you going to pay for it? You're a 14-year-old kid. You're not going to be able to pay no $300 subscription per month or anything. So yeah, I was on the bandwagon with, being that underage youth stealing stuff from the internet. So I jumped on there and downloaded a copy of 3ds Max and basically just did stuff. It was pretty funny because at first I was using just primitives. So I would take like, a bunch of spheres or boxes or whatever, and I would just slam them together and make Totoro, a water cooler, just random things. And I'd send them to my online buddy, and he would be like, "Oh yeah, that's trash." That's never going to be game ready or anything. And I'd be like, "Oh well, I'm not making games. I'm doing 3D art." And basically every time I would make something, I would go to like send it to him, or I would post it online in a group called One Up. This super old forum that was just incredibly early internet toxicity. And I would post something and they would just tear it down. You have this young little 15-year-old kid learning 3D for the first time, and basically just people being like, "It's shit, you're bad, give up on life." And it was rough. So I took a step back from ever releasing anything for years. I would just sit there and work on things and then put it on a hard drive, and then it would just disappear when I move or whatever. I would just lose stuff. And it was really, really kind of sucky to like just sit there and keep like building the skill and it just go nowhere. And then after a while, like I said, I had ambitions to be a film director. So my buddy and I, we were both like just super like hardcore film junkies. So we would talk about film all the time, and we were like, well, let's get a camera. So he had a little bit more money and he was a little bit more capable. So he like bought a camera and some of the equipment, like he bought one of the cranes and stuff. Like we have this fucking like a 30-foot crane in his backyard that we would take places and disassemble it, put it in his like Honda and take it over. So like we did all this film stuff for a while. We got commissioned to do like music videos, just little things. The music videos got out of hand though. People, they don't know what they want. they just want the generic booty shaking and whatnot. But anyways, I would take my 3D and I would put that into some of the videos. So like if you go to YouTube and you type in Half-Light Studios, you'll still find my old channel from my friend and I. And it has certain videos in there that use a fair amount of CGI, like the Half-Light versus Skyrim versus Dark Souls video. That one has some CGI elements in it. Not as much as I would have wanted. At that time, there was this weird like disconnection or worry that the quality of art that I was doing was too different for what my friend wanted for like the actual, like mixing into real footage.
Yeah.
So there was like this weird back and forth that we would have sometimes about like, does my 3D live up to the standard of film? And it just got weird after a while. And then we were like, okay, well, this isn't working out. So let's just call it, man. Let's just part ways. And the film stuff, he'll go his way and do his thing, and then I'll do my thing. And at that point I was like, well, with me having been homeschooled, and not super comfortable with other people, like I don't have, like if I get in a room full of people, I get super like sweaty and nervous. Like I don't want to be the focus of attention at all or anything. So when you're the director, everyone looks to you for that attention. Sorry.
No, you're good.
So yeah, everyone kind of looks to you for that attention and everything, and it can be really stressful. And it was something that I just didn't want as like a day-to-day kind of thing, especially not with like my day job, because no matter what, all throughout this, like since I was 15, I had started working at PetSmart in order to like balance this weird relationship I had with my ex-wife. And basically I would just hey buddy, I would just work all the time, and when I wasn't working I was like doing film and then 3D and stuff like that. I would always just like try and juggle the three things. And then like I said, once my friend and I parted ways, it was like, well, what do I do with this now 15-year long talent of 3D and nothing to do with it? Like, what do I do? Because I had hid everything, I didn't feel comfortable sharing things online. And even, again, like I said, it didn't work out with the film work because my friend said my stuff was too different. Like, it was a lot. It was concerning at times because I didn't know whether or not I had built this like 15-year long skill of doing 3D that was both useless and or like made me creepy. I don't know. It got strange. But I decided to take that and try and figure something out. And that to me meant, what can I do to help people see my 3D in a way that is beneficial, like something that where they can see that art and say it's something I enjoy. And of course, the whole time I've been a gamer since I was like 4 years old. And I've always considered doing the gaming route, but it's not my thing when it comes to like programming. I'm not efficient with programming in that way. So that was always like, I don't know math. Like I don't want to do that. It's hard. And then at one point I just like was like, no, that's not who I am. I'm not the it's hard kind of guy. Like, yeah, sure, I may have earned the name Sloth as a child and everything, but like I've really grown into this person that's like, I don't like to stop. I don't like to give up or anything like that. So I'll push and I'll push and I'll push and I'll push for all the positivity in my life and everything. And I think that basically came from like after like my divorce. I had this like fallout, this divorce that happened, and I met this wonderful woman named Erica who just picked me up when I was like just broken. Like she really saved me from a lot. And because of her, I decided to not give up on the 3D, because my choice was like, do I just keep working the normal day job and not have ambitions and just be useless forever, or at least useless in my mind? Like, I'm sure I'm a productive member of society when it comes to knowing how to manage a job, but that wasn't making me happy. It doesn't make me happy. I still work a day job. It sucks. But it's not because I have to work that day job. It's because it's not the job that I want in terms of being creative. I again, I like to be creative. So to sum this up, and I'll let you ask questions. Sorry, I've talked
No,
so
you're
long.
good.
Oh no, I've lost myself.
You're talking about summing up, like you didn't want to lose your ambitions.
Yes.
And
So basically, my current wife, basically I married her. She was really about like, hey, don't give up on yourself as well. Be better. You can be better. And I didn't have that with my previous wife. She was a lot more like, go out and get another job so you can pay more bills. Like, give up on your ambitions and work harder for me. It was insane. So when it came to this, it was like, well, how do I take my 3D and how do I move that to a place that people can enjoy it? So I started looking at like Unity, and at that time, my friend was then moving towards Unity to just check that out to see if that was any good, because he started getting into 3D at one point. And I was like, okay, well, I'll check out Unity. If you're learning it, then surely I can take a look at it. And I started diving into it, and I was like, nope, it's just code. it's all sitting there typing in strands of code. So it did not click, and I tried. I really did. I did like, I think 2 months of just scraping my head against the wall trying to figure out how to do stuff in it, and it just felt uncomfortable. And then at one point somebody was like, well, Unreal Engine is free. You could try it. It does something different called visual blueprints. And I was like, oh, okay, what's that? So I downloaded it. And then ironically, I downloaded Lumberyard as well, which was Amazon's engine. And I was like, well, I'll check out lumber first. And like 10 minutes into that, I was like, this sucks. threw that to the side, and I was like, fine, I'm just gonna last ditch effort, do some Unreal and see what happens. And the visual blueprints, visual scripting language that they use called Blueprints is hands down what I needed. It was basically the connection that let me understand how to write programming, because I got to the point where I was studying it so much that I could look at it, I could understand, like, okay, this is going to make the character jump on an x-axis, or a v-axis or anything like that, and it'll have its percentage value, so you can understand what it's going to be doing. But that wasn't something I could type. Like, that wasn't something that I was like, oh, okay, I want my character to jump. What do I do? So it was weird for me. But once I saw Blueprints, it just kind of clicked. And that's basically, it was like, your character is going to do what? And it was like, okay. So yeah, then I started diving into that super hardcore. And I think that's where I'm happiest.
That's glad. I'm glad to hear that. I guess to kind of follow that up is after you said it was 15 years kind of experience, so you kind of dealt with three. In that 15 years, if you had to do it again, what would you do differently?
One of the major things I would do differently is, regardless of my being uncomfortable, I would have been, excelling in terms of trying to publish my art. Like I said, I had lost so much, and one of the things that sucks is, like, for example, if you look at, wow, I even got discouraged with this, and I've somehow tuned it out of my head. There's a website for 3D artists. I'm drawing a blank. What is it? Not Sculpture. Man. Hold up, I have a link on my Twitter. But basically, it's a portfolio website for 3D artists. If I can find the link. ArtStation. I'll have to send you the link for this one so you can check it out. But basically, like, I had put on there 15 plus years of freelance 3D asset work, which is 100% true. Again, wow. I've basically, I started out with my 3D doing my stuff for me, and then people would ask me to make stuff for them, and I would make stuff. They would charge small amounts. I started doing my own music videos way back in the day that were all in 3D, again, inspired by him, which I would, like, upload privately for that artist, and he would, like, have his copy or whatever. And then, basically I would hide mine. Like, there's all kinds of videos on my YouTube and stuff that are, like, hidden and everything. But, like, I had all this different stuff, all this different art and everything that because I never posted it there was no proof that I did it, essentially. So, like, when I made this ArtStation account, which was the portfolio, and I put 15 plus years of freelance 3D asset work, somebody immediately commented on there and was like, but you have nothing. Wow. I was like, well, yeah, he's not wrong. So it was very disappointing to hear that. And basically what I did was I kind of, like, locked up and was like, well, what do? I can't just put anything on here. It can't just be random things. Like, that's not going to be appealing to anybody. So I was like, well, then I'll put what I have from the diving bell, regardless of which, it's not the prettiest of my asset work. There was this huge error that happened. So, like, again, I've been doing my stuff for so long. Like, I know what I'm doing in a lot of different ways. And here comes this major opportunity where they're like, oh, you have proven that your GIFs, because I was posting a lot of GIFs all over the place. They're like, you have proven that your stuff that you're working on is visually interesting enough to warrant hiring you for a project. And that was DreadX. DreadX had reached out to me and was offering me that spot. And I was like, okay, well, what's the window? And he was like, you have a 10-day window to make this game. And you can either make it solo and take all the money yourself, or you can hire, a team if you want, but you would be splitting that between you guys. And I was like, okay, well, I make that money, the amount they offered, which was like $1,400. I was like, I make that in 2 weeks of my job. Again, because I've worked my ass off since I was 15, so I've played the system. I've been the good boy. So good things happen if you work continuously. You just won't be happy. so I was like, yeah, okay, well, I'll take this paycheck and I'll just split it between me and a few other people, and we'll just bang out something nice. So I brought on a programmer that I had worked with in a game jam, and he had a writer that we also worked with together. So it was basically the three of us, and then I added one more, which was a concept artist named Zach. So it was me, Connor, this is the writer, and then Aiden was the programmer, and then Zach was the concept artist. So I was like bugging the hell out of Zach continuously during this window of time that I had. And I was like, I need concept art for this. I believe he kicked out 90 pieces of concept art.
Wow.
And I had like a folder of it, and like I was bugging the programmer every day, and I was like, I want a section in the game, in the menu, that you can go and see the concept art. And he was like, yeah, I'll get to it. It didn't happen. We ran out of time. We had multiple endings planned for the game, and we were only able to program the one ending. So people are always like, did I get the bad ending? No, that's what we wanted. We want, nobody lives in these Lovecraft stories. So we felt like we captured the essence of Lovecraft's writing with No One Lives.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, I was gonna ask if, since this was kind of like, this was kind of like your first official kind of like, I guess not job, but like I guess a way of getting your foot in the door of like, oh hey, like I've actually done game jams now, I can do all this. Like, do you think that's like a good way of trying to like getting your name out there, or do you think it might be a bit?
I'm 100% supportive of people doing game jams. I trailed off for like 1 second. Hold on. Let's go back to the game jam.
Oh yeah.
Second. To finish up the diving bell thing, the issue that I wanted to mention was that right before we started the game jam, so or not the game jam, the 10-day window of time that we had, it was like, I think literally the day before, my program, one of the programs that I used, because I stopped stealing. I forgot to mention that earlier. I stopped stealing. Cox Internet contacted me, and they were like, hey, stop stealing. And I was like, no. And then I stole something else, and they're like, seriously, we're going to shut off your internet. I was like, okay, I'm sorry. And I stopped. And I haven't stolen anything from the internet since like fucking 2012, I think. It's been a long time. But yeah, and that was a thing too, because that meant that I had to stop using 3ds Max. So when I was returning heavily to 3D, I was like, well, what the hell do I do? And then I got super heavy into Blender, which was a trip, because like you get used to, especially after all the time I put into it. It was like like 11 years or something like that at that time. But you get used to like movement in an engine, and when you're doing 3D, you have all these different, like, okay, you hold control and click to move and stuff like that, so like making the change over to Blender was just a drastic like headache for me. But once I did, I got used to it, and just kind of like scraped the surface for as little as I could for a while, just so I could make bare minimum art. And then like started getting better, and then as time went on, I realized that there was a major difference between Blender and 3ds Max, and that was how you go about texturing. So like in 3ds Max, it was mostly just kind of like doing what we call an on-wrap, which is like you make a box and then you put these lines on it that let you unfold it into like a big picture, and then you can draw on it. So you would usually take that image and then throw it over to Photoshop, and then you would do whatever the hell you wanted in Photoshop. And nowadays it's so much more simplistic and everything, but it was still just so different that it took me time to figure out. But basically what it is now with Blender, it's like you have either the in-engine way to do it, which is kind of similar to Unreal Engine with like the visual blueprints in a way. They call them nodes, and you basically just like move all these different things around to like make a little, brown box, whatever it
Yeah.
may be. And then there's a different thing that you can do too, which is called Substance Painter. Hi, that's me, Substance Painter. So I was excited. I was like, hell yeah, I have a great opportunity here with this paid production where I can actually put out a game with high quality assets and everything. And I was just super excited. Day before the thing starts, Substance Painter subscription dies. And I was like, oh no, what does this mean? So, of course, I didn't want to steal anything. So I was like, I'm not going to download a key or anything like that. So I was like, well, I'll just do it. I'll do it the right way. I'll contact them. I'll send them an email, and we'll be good in a day or two, and I can catch up. They didn't get back to me until after the game was done.
Oh wow.
So I did not have appealing textures at all. And it was the most heartbreaking thing because everything in the game is made by me, like when it comes to the assets. So like to have, everything in there, the computer, the desk, the doors, and all this different stuff with all these temporary textures making it into the final game, I was just devastated. And people would, play the game and they'd be like, oh, it's cool, it looks super weird. And it was just like, oh no. And then there'd be other people that'd be like, the style is crazy cool, and I'm like, well, I'll accept that.
I was
Go
gonna,
for it.
I was gonna say, that kind of thing of like something kind of just falling apart near the end. Is that like a common occurrence, that kind of like a common hazard that like you should be aware of if you're going to go into this industry, or is that like a shooting star kind of moment of like this fell apart like in a 1 in a million chance kind of thing?
No, I mean, these things fall apart all the time. Especially when you're working in certain types of projects. So like, for example, game jams are super difficult when it comes to teams. I've done maybe like 15 or 20 game jams, but I've only released maybe like 7 of those games, and it was only because some of those teams would, in the earlier section anyways, because I was very open to like just working with anybody, which I still highly encourage. But yeah, you would basically start a game, and it would be like either a 48-hour game jam or like a week-long game jam or whatever that may be. And sometimes you would start it with a few different people from like a Discord or whatever, and you'd be like 2 or 3 days into it, or however deep into it, and then they would just disappear. People would just, I don't want to do this anymore, and they would just vanish. So you'd be left with like, okay, well, either I pick up that person's slack or I just give up on this game right now. So it was kind of, it would put you into these really awkward situations. And again, me being the person that doesn't want to give up, I would be like, well, if you guys decided to quit, like, I'm just going to keep going anyways. So like I have a few different games on my itch.io that are like just totally not complete. Like there's one where you play as a little demon with an orb that rolls in front of you, and you're meant to pick up trash in hell, like in this like on a pier, and you're like you're rolling around, and you basically just roll over this trash to like absorb it. And my programmer just bailed, just bailed like a quarter of the way through it, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll finish. And I ended up making like the whole pier. I did all the assets and everything for it. My friend even jumped in and did a couple of the assets with me, so I would have more time to be able to do the like pick up the slack for the programming. And I managed to like get the camera working, get the roll working, and all that. Could not figure out how to like obliterate trash. So like you were just this demon on the fucking pier rolling around with an orb. And like if you play it now, like you can still download it. I just leave it as there, leave it there as sort of a joke, or like, hey, I did this. But like you can't leave the game. There's no winning mechanism. Like there's nothing about it that's like appealing for more than like 5 minutes, and you're like, oh, I'm trapped. But yeah, to answer the question though, when it comes to like working with teams and stuff, it's always hit and miss. You can the best thing I suggest is, again, working with in jams and everything to find people that you work well with. So like for me, again, I had done a lot of different jams, and then at one point I had done a 48-hour jam for we did a game called Vestigial, and that was the one that I used that programmer and that writer with. And I was really heavily attached to the writer for that particular project, because he just blasted the players. Like, just was like, the first thing I heard out of one of the games was like, "You're a piece of shit," like, to the player. And I was like, what? This is not what anybody should expect when they go into a game, is to be belittled and told like that you're a piece of rotting meat, and you know that you're dead weight, and that you did nothing with your life. And like the funniest thing was just watching like people play it on YouTube or on Twitch or whatever, and they would just be blasted by it. And then just like you could see in their face, especially the lines where they're like, "You did nothing with your life," and it just it just gets super sad, and I feel bad, but at the same time, it's like it's effective. So because of that, I was like, I have to work with these guys again. And then so when I was offered the option with Dread, I was like, well, yeah, I'm gonna pull them along. I pulled Zach too, which was a friend of Aiden's, and we did pretty well until there was a point where I had been like putting so many different assets. I had been sleeping maybe like 2 hours a night. Like it was just back to back between working my day job and then just, nonstop nose to the grindstone putting out assets for this game. And it got to the point where I was just like yelling at Aiden, like, dude, it's been this amount of time and we started with this, and I told you at the very beginning, I need you guys to be able to pick up stuff. Like, I can't have a game like this in like this big of a deal to me. I'm paying you. I need to be able to pick stuff up. And it just blew my mind, like how he would be like, yeah, I'll get to it. It's on the list. And then like, it just didn't happen. And it floored me. And I think what happened is I overwhelmed him. I mean, I'm the type of person that works nose to the grindstone and does this, but not everybody, man. Like, it was a lesson learned for me that you can't push people that hard. I am fine with the crunch. I like crunch. I do well with it. I piss people off all the time with that. I'm like, oh, do the work. Yeah, you're doing your creative medium. You're getting paid fucking 70 grand a year at least to do your creative medium. And I'm over here getting paid nothing for it. And I do work way harder than some people. So I don't know. It's baffling when it comes to that kind of thing. But again, I think I pushed him too hard, and it led to a moment where we had to bring in another programmer to kind of fix some of the errors. And if it wasn't for that extra individual, we would have an absolute dud in terms of that game. And it wasn't because of again, a lack of effort. Like, Aiden did a ton of work. He really tried his best, I think. And it was a very small window of time, and I think I just pushed him too hard for it. But again, I think the game came out decent. It just kind of sucks that I can't really use it too well as a portfolio piece. And thus now I've landed in a position where it was like, what do I do next? So after the Diving Bell here, I went back to some of my other games that I had been working on. And so that was like Granular, which is the car game, the bowling game, which was like a fan favorite by a lot of people. And then the Ancient Ones Hate Me, which is like my first person horror game that was originally a script that I had worked on back when I was doing my film work. So that was an idea I've had, all the way from back then. And I basically just adapted that over to a game script, and I'm keeping it extremely short. It's just a prologue. So like, kind of just a way to launch the game. Like, if people want more of it, I'll consider it down the line. It's been going on for years. And I'm at the point now where I've learned so much with like the diving bell, and I've learned so much with working with teams and doing the game jams and stuff that I look at that game and I'm like, man, I really want to finish this, but like I kind of want to restart it. Like,
Oh,
and that's a curse of indie game devs. You don't have someone breathing down your shoulder saying like you have to finish this by a deadline. um but the diving bell, it was like we had a 10-day window. It was clear cut and dry. We had to execute. So that was really a major difference in terms of like a paid production and just kind of being freelance, doing your own thing. But I myself, to be very clear, I've put all of my projects, my own personal projects, on hold. And I actually brought the writer from those previous games, the Vestigial and the Diving Bell. I took the writer, and he had a programmer friend that he wanted to bring on, so we're working with him. And then I have Zach back for concept art. I'm bugging the crap out of him again. And then we have somebody else for music that we're doing as kind of not necessarily part of the team. Like that sounds mean, but basically as freelance. Just kind of like, hey, we'll pay you by the minute or whatever for the tracks or whatever. So we're kind of doing like an out of pocket thing now, and then we'll once we release the game to Steam and everything, we'll like kind of pay ourselves back in that way, and then make sure everyone on the team is paid. So this way there's no bad blood. And it's been going really well. We've been at that for like 2 months now. We have a projected goal of about 6 months for this one.
oh, solid.
Yeah, and it's been a ton of work. Again, me being so stubborn, I'm like, no, everything in this needs to be like my assets. So like I've been going through and making all these like portfolio worthy pieces. So like grand organs and this church and all this different crazy ass stuff. So I'm hoping everyone will get a good kick out of that. And it's been so hard not to like just show people on my Twitter, because again, I came from that like don't show anybody anything, and then all of a sudden, I forced myself to have the Twitter, despite feeling incredibly insecure about it. I was just like, I'm just gonna do it. Yeah, I'm just gonna do it, and I started putting stuff out, and then started slowly gathering some fans, and now I'm like 461 or something like that, which is still low, but
Hey.
nonetheless, to me, it's like, I have somebody that cares, and that means so much to me. Like just having people that like yourself have an interest in my art. So
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful. It's a huge drive for me.
Well, going back to your like project that you're kind of have ongoing, I'm kind of interested in kind of like when you're working on it, what is like a typical like day working on that project? Like, how does that tend to go for you?
So like I said, I have my day job. So like I'll wake up at 5 in the morning, and then I'll basically start my shift at 6. I'll work all the way up until 3:30 or 4:30, depending on whether or not I need overtime. Which would basically just be me catching up. Like my boss was like, "You get overtime, you can absorb overtime and get extra money." And I was like, "I don't care about the money. I'm fine. Like it's fine." So like I'll stay for overtime sometimes just to like kind of clean up or whatever. Like because I manage a team of 22 people. Because I work for a law firm. I don't want to say which law firm.
No, yeah, yeah.
but yeah, but yeah,
We're here to talk about the game dev stuff. Yeah.
yeah. But basically, what I'll do is I'll like during my shift, I'll go on my 15-minute breaks. I'll have like 2 15s and a 30-minute lunch. So like during those breaks, I'll just be sitting there on my Discord, like talking to my team, like, okay, I need this for concept art. I need this for the programming to be done. And then I'll be talking to Connor about like what direction we need for the house. So we're constantly just in this motion of like trying to move throughout the day. And then once I get my access to my computer, because basically with COVID and everything, I work from home, my wife works from home, and we have this super ridiculous, elaborate setup of like computer monitors and stuff all over the place. But like I have I have my work computer with 2 monitors and then a laptop hooked up to another monitor, which I use for doing 3D when I'm away from this computer, which has another 2 monitors. And basically during the day, which she works about 2 hours later than me, she uses this computer, which locks me up for game dev. I can't do anything with game dev. And I'm like, basically I'm just saving up money right now to like buy another computer. So this way this isn't a concern or anything. But basically what I'll do is I'll like work my shift and everything. And then as soon as I'm off work, I'll like try to mentally take a break because I'll just keep going. So like I'll have to like take a step back and be like, well, she's doing her thing on there. I need to go and like clean up the house a little bit or like, make dinner or, chill out and watch a movie or something, just kind of unplug. And then as soon as she gets off work, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to get started now. So I'll immediately do what we call pulling the project from GitHub. And that's basically where you have your repo with your repository system, which is where the game is uploaded to the cloud. And then you basically are just pulling down a fresh copy. So if anybody like my programmer has made a change, I'll be able to see that in real time. So I'll pull that and then I'll just immediately kind of run through the house. The whole game takes place in a house. But like I'll kind of run through real quick and see like, okay, I need a couple of extra walls on this side, or like I need dressers or like whatever it may be. And I'll go through my list of hundreds of assets and be like, okay, yeah, I'll take an asset from this game and I'll throw that in there and then touch up the texture if I need to. Or sometimes I'll go through and I'll find an asset that I did like a year ago or whatever, and I'll be like, oh, this is crap, and I'll just delete it and then make a whole new one and then throw that one in there. So yeah, for me personally, it's just like I just look around, especially in the game, as well as like the list of concept art that Zach's done already. And I'll choose usually like 1 or 2 assets to do a night. And then I'll just try and bang those out. And that's something too, that's a little different for me. It was kind of funny. I got into an argument with somebody on that portfolio site. Cause I was sitting there and I was like, okay, well, yeah, these textures aren't great or whatever that may be, but like what is, because I was talking to somebody, I was like, what is kind of what do people look for on these portfolios? What should I be building? And they were like, well, let's say, for example, if you do a chair and you spend the entire day on the chair and, do this, layout with the texture and everything, then that would be your thing. And I was like, do you seriously spend a whole day on a chair? And he was like, it takes a whole day at least. And I was like, no, it doesn't. Like, I can do a chair in like 20 minutes, bro. What are you talking about? And he's like, you can't do a good chair in 20 minutes. I was like, okay. Sure, bud.
This is actually a great setup for a question I had. When it comes to like game development, what's something that you think that like people either, I guess both inside and outside of the industry, focus way too much on, and what's something that they like don't focus on but should?
I would say it's depends on kind of how it's being produced. So like for example, if it's like a major studio, obviously asking them to be original is kind of weird or unacceptable, because like we end up with examples such as Death Stranding, where it's like you end up with this game that's so freaking weird and different that it just alienated tons of people, and they were like, no, I don't want to play this. It was one of the more diverse games to have come out recently, and in my opinion is the best game to have ever come out. I love it to death. And I had a conversation with my wife at one point where I was like, why do I like this so much? Like, because I don't usually connect to games in that way. Like, I'll play a game for a couple of hours and then I'll be like, oh, I gotta go work. And I'll forget about it and I'll stop playing it. I'll move on to the next game. And that's just like kind of a normal for me. But here comes Death Stranding, and all of a sudden, I'm finishing the game and I had 104 hours in it, and I'm like, that's not at all something I do. And we're talking about the game that people describe purely as a walking simulator. um, to me, it wasn't that. It was pure engagement. So one of the things that Kojima did, or his team had done with that, is always involving the player by engaging just simple movement. The idea that you're walking and can fall over at any given moment because you took your hand off the controller to scratch your head or whatever, like that's fascinating to me, because it is a video game. You're not just sitting there watching a movie or playing these animations throughout. You're really engaged. And then obviously you have Kojima's 45-minute long cutscenes and shit like that
Yeah.
happens. But I mean, the actual gameplay itself, in my opinion, was one of the most original kind of pieces of work I've played ever. And that's something that, like, you can't typically ask of a major studio, because it's such a gamble for them. They can just lose tons of money, especially single player routes. They don't have a whole lot of feedback. And then to top all that off, he doesn't even have any microtransactions or anything like that. He used Monster Energy, and then Norman Reedus helped produce it and things like that too. So this way we could have some in-game advertisements that everyone clings to about complaining, oh, Monster Energy drink, but like, dude, you don't have any microtransactions. You're not paying for those shoes that you have to replace. Like, it's fine. And I think that's something that, like, major studios should be aware of, in terms of what kind of alienation they're creating. Asking players to constantly be online without putting major focus on single player games. I mean, obviously you have Rockstar and stuff like that do still believe in that too, but even they have started focusing too much on multiplayer, in my opinion. Um, and then of course, if we were to dial that same question back to like indie studios, we have the utmost ability to be creative and be original. The problem with doing that is that we tend to be too creative or too willy-nilly. We don't put ourselves into a proper GDD, a game development document, to which where we can actually force ourselves to follow a guided line and finish the product. Again, with my game, The Ancient Ones Hate Me, I've been working on it for like 3 years, but I have nothing to put out yet, other than just GIFs or videos or whatever that may be, because that particular game is so weird and unique to me. I wanted it to kind of evolve with me. I don't have a set deadline for it, because the game has not lived up to my creative expectations yet. So if I can't pull that off yet, I don't want you guys to suffer as a player, through an average game. That's not what I'm asking. Yeah, that's not fair. So so I don't do that. And I want other people to kind of have that same kind of like personal understanding of themselves. Like, if you're the type of person that has crazy ambitions and you come up with a new idea every single day, just stop. Just like, I understand we have that like well that kind of overflows, and we want to be creative and everything. You can write all those ideas down. You do not need to execute those ideas. Like, you can gather resources and build information that will help your game proceed, rather than trying to implement 30 different things that don't make sense. And that, I think, only comes with like kind of understanding and time of learning the trade and everything. But at the same time, when you're coming up with these original ideas and everything, and trying to be creative with this medium, you really just need to kind of hold on to like one major mechanic, one main thing that makes your game work, and just flush that out instead of overly adapting.
Awesome. Yeah, no, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The idea of kind of just having some restraint with your ideas, and like not making, if you have a good picture of a flower, you don't want to keep adding more pictures to that flower and then
Yeah.
have it overshadow everything. But no, I have one final question that kind of goes off that, alongside the advice of kind of having some restraint with ideas. Uh, if someone was entering into like the indie scene, like for development, art, whatever, what advice would you give to them? to let them like anything.
Yeah, my one of my biggest things, like I had mentioned already, is be very social. You know, again, don't let people discourage you. Like, people are mean on the internet, and I definitely took that stuff to heart. It was really hard for me, but like, you really can find a good audience of helpful people that do care, if you just keep forcing yourself to do good, positive things. You know, positive begets positive. So it's a lot of, be open. My main advice would just, again, be open and willing to share things. And then the other part of it too is be involved. You really make a lot of connections just by doing these game jams. And may it be a long game jam or a short one, you can still make a lot of interesting friends, different dynamics in terms of the games and things. But you have to be open to it in terms of working with a team. I've done so many game jams that there's definitely times where you go into them and people are like, this is the game we're going to make. And sometimes it's better not to fight them. It's like, okay, well, then you're dead set on what you want to do, because you probably know that you can execute that. So let's build on that and work together, instead of trying to, make it your own thing. Work together. One major thing that I love to say to people is, you are the hero of your own story. I don't remember exactly where the quote comes from. But like, the problem with that statement is that we all are willing to try and be the voice of reason within the room, and there's obviously people that are, like me, that are shy or might not want to, be as open or anything like that. But there's a connection that you are still making in your own head, whether you're shy or not, that you still want to be the person that has choice and matter and opinion. So when it comes to working on game jams, you have to work together and value that other person's opinion too, because they feel the same way. And again, just cohesion.
But yeah, no, that yeah, I really actually like that kind of message of like, like, not everyone wants to be the center of attention, but at the end of the day, there's going to be too many butting heads. Like, so you need to like work together. I really like that, especially now
Yeah.
during everything that's going on.
Yeah, and right now, that's another thing too. With COVID, there's been a massive change in how like people are engaging. So right now is a fantastic time to be doing game jams, and I can't get this strand of hair to not fall down. But yeah, basically, there's a lot of opportunity out there for people, because everyone has all this extra free time. And when you're in this creative medium, people want to stay preoccupied with things that are going to keep them happy. And when we're working from home, we have this like constant, like, oh, we're still at work, we haven't left work because we're still here. And we need to kind of have a creative outlet to do that. So right now, there are a lot of game jams happening. There's a lot of people that are getting involved with other people. So it would be a shame to just let this opportunity pass by and not really make use of it. It's weird to like look at COVID as a beneficial thing. I'm not trying to say that, but
Yeah.
but like, it has, since COVID started, like, my life has completely turned around because of the work from home position. It's given me just enough free time to where I can make this stuff happen. And I feel like there's a lot of people that are getting stuck in their heads and getting stuck in their TVs, or just not being involved with themselves enough. I want people to, whether it's game design or not, like, have a hobby, be involved, do things that are going to help some type of passion come out of you.
Yeah. Well, no, yeah, well, like, that's all the questions I really had. Thank you so much. Once again, I truly appreciate you taking time out of, the busy schedule that you got. I can't thank you enough. And yeah, that's the end of this. So
Yeah.
once
Right
again,
on, man.
thank
Well,
you.
thank you for considering me. I mean, again, I know that some of my information isn't like directly in the game field, but I hope it's helpful.
Oh no, definitely, yeah. Just it's what I was looking for. exactly what I was looking for.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome. Well, yeah, man, if you have any other questions or anything, just you know where to find me.
Absolutely, yeah. And then I'm going to